right, this episode of Mental Health Mondays is brought to you by the legendary Burden Bomber. If you have yourself a glass of water, get yourself Alka-Seltzer Plus type-ish tablets. We can't formally say Alka-Seltzer is not a sponsor, but you take those, you drop them in, you make sure you get your totally generic, not emergency type vitamin C for preventative measures. And then, of course, you also have to add a form of, and there's many different brands out there. I recommend getting the generic store-bought brand of energy powder. I recommend the Wild Berry is my favorite, but they have a wide range of delicious flavors. Mary, what is your favorite? Do you like the Wild Berry?
I like the Wild Berry, and I like the orange and the mango.
Orange mango is very popular. I know a good mutual friend of ours, Nacho Man Shane. He is a big fan of the mango, and then there's also tangerine strawberry. And a recent addition that I haven't had in a long time, they have wild strawberry. So that if you will,
I have not tried some of those. I'm going to have to branch out and try some new flavors.
Wild strawberry is rare to find, but when you do find it, I recommend. I wonder if it comes out during the Pungo Strawberry Festival. I wonder if it's like a limited edition.
It could be.
But anybody that is, whether you're, this was a magic potion that got many of us teachers through some difficult days where you're just not feeling it and you just need that extra get you through it.
It has gotten me through many days, and I know many coworkers we kept the school running on them.
Yes, in fact, I know that a mutual friend of ours, a coworker, Wilda, I was her dealer for a while there. I had, she would come by and grab a pack, and sometimes she would donate a box of the emergency to the stash. And
well, you know what I have seen on Amazon? So I think you really need to get a patent. Is they are already mixing the emergency and the energy powder together.
Yeah, see?
And you can buy a packet that has both of them.
And it's only a matter of time before they put all three together.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so
I think you need a patent for the original Burden Bomber.
You heard it here first from Mary and Aaron. The Burden Bomber. Highly recommend. I'll put a link in description below. Patent is coming. As soon as I can figure out how to do that, we'll get that going. But again, this episode is brought to you by the Burden Bomber. Highly recommended. Get out there. It'll get you through the day, and then you can go home and go to sleep.
That's right.
But speaking
of
which,
we're not doctors, but we play them on people.
We are not official doctors, but we may, but we act as doctors when we're in a classroom. We're doctors or psychiatrists, mommies, daddies, nurses. Well, without further ado, let me introduce my guest today. A very, very good, close personal friend of mine, one of my favorite people in the world. One of my former co-workers in the Virginia Beach City Public Schools, former as in I am no longer there, she is still one of the soldiers on the front line, but is none other than the mayor of Hermitage Elementary, because she is always in the know, and she's one of the ones that everybody talks to, gets along with everybody, well, almost everybody, but, only people that if you can't
talk about those people.
But if you can't get along with Mary, it's a you problem, not a Mary problem. But anyways, without further ado, Mary Koushel, one of my favorite people. She was at my wedding, and it's great to talk to you. How you doing today?
I am so happy to finally be here. I am excited to talk about mental health.
Yes.
And because I really think it's something that every one of us deals with in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And the more that we talk about it and the more that we share with each other, the more we realize we're not alone.
Absolutely. So
I'm really glad that you started this.
It's been something I wanted to work on for some time. I've got other ideas like the Educators Podcast and whatnot coming down, but this is something I feel like needs to be normalized. And I think you and I agree that this is something that previous generations had a harder time discussing out loud.
Yep.
I think a lot of folks.
Yep. My generation.
And I think that it's something that I feel like it's healthier. It's kind of like, instead of keeping things bottled up, when you you give air to these things, and like you said, you find out you're not alone. In fact, there's a lot of people feeling very similar, and in some cases, you start to find a different perspective, or it shifts your perspective. But I do think it's something that needs to be talked about. And as one teacher to another, we definitely have had some mental health challenges presented to us.
I think everybody during COVID, I know during COVID, shortly after COVID, when I lost my mom, I was looking to talk to a therapist. And the area that I live in, you could not find anybody. They were booked. Everybody in this city, I think, was seeing therapists. So the only thing that I could get was a phone consultation. And it was like a one-time phone consultation. And we talked, and she said, well, you sound like you're doing good, so I think you're okay.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
So hopefully it sounds like to me, as busy as all the therapists are, that more and more people are starting to take care of themselves.
And I think there's definitely a need for people, good listeners too. I know, because I one time, this is years ago, when I was in a previous job, I was really feeling stressed out and really kind of having that kind of crisis, not really midlife crisis, but kind of that crisis of, am I doing what I want to do? This was eventually what led to me getting into teaching. Yeah. But we had one of these things through our health insurance where we could have 5 free consultations with a psychiatrist or psychologist. And so I took it, and of course I go in, and my first session, and every session, it's like I'm telling this guy my problems, and he's just looking at me like I'm boring him, like he has heard so much worse that my petty little problems are nothing. But I do think that kind of stuff is relative. Even though there are people that are having much, much worse issues, to the person that's experiencing a challenge, it's still a challenge. It doesn't minimize what someone else is going through.
Yep. It's all relative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And losing a family member, especially during COVID's got to be incredibly tough.
And I've also heard related to that, some people will go to a therapist, and like you said, they don't listen, you don't relate to them, and they'll just quit. That's just it. But you really should keep going until you find somebody who you gel with, because we don't always mix with everybody. We got to find the person who's right for us. So people shouldn't give up just because one time it doesn't work. Move on and try somebody else. They're
like brain mechanics.
Yeah.
You got to find a mechanic that's right for you. It's for your car. Same thing. You got to find somebody that gels with you. And same with you got to find some. Yeah, it's like finding a good doctor too. You might see a doctor that just doesn't click with you. And then sometimes you might find somebody, this is perfect for you.
Yeah.
So COVID definitely, I think, increased a lot of challenges. For a homebody like me, it wasn't as bad, but for a lot of social people, it was a huge challenge. And I think that in some ways it exasperated, is that the word? It made worse a lot of challenges that people were already facing. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I totally agree.
How did you feel whenever I remember? In fact, you were the first person I had a conversation with. We were both teaching at Hermitage, and you were the first person because you would always come to me with the weather, to see if I was going to predict whether or not we were going to get snow or something, and you're like, well, let me ask Burden. If we're going to get snowed in, and I'd always
snow prediction,
right. But this one, I was like, you came to me it was Monday or Tuesday. You asked me, are we going to get shut down? And on Tuesday, I was like, No, on Monday I didn't think we were.
Yeah.
Tuesday I was starting to go, I don't know. By Wednesday I was like, yeah, it looks like we're going down for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was going to be as long as it was.
You know, I just think back to the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And the planes flew in that, and then COVID. Who would ever predict that we would see anything like either one of those in our lifetime? You know, to me, if you would have told me before either one of those happened, I would have been like, you are absolutely crazy. There is no way.
Well, but you know, you think about that. You think about people that were alive, like our age during World War II.
Yeah.
You know, did they expect Pearl Harbor to happen, or you know, a lot of these different things? You never know. Like I remember that the 9/11 started out for me like just another day. I was actually off that day, and I remember I was picking up my dry cleaning when I heard on the radio they were talking about it, and it was surreal to me. Like, it didn't sound like it was real.
I know.
And then I went to the mall, and I remember they had it up on this dates me. You know, obviously, you know, it's 2001. They had a Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Radio Shack still on. They had all these TVs, and everybody in the mall was all watching on the TV, and we actually had only seen the first plane. And we actually saw the second plane hit live in the mall watching on the TV. It was crazy.
Yeah. Did you get it right away? Like when you saw it, did it make sense to you that like this was on purpose?
I was at a point where I started reserving judgment on that kind of stuff. Like I wanted to, okay, we're going to hear about what's going on. And I started wondering like what's next. And of course, you know, I'm wondering, are they going to come after the Norfolk shipyard? Are they going to come after you know, all the military installations? But yeah, it was one of those things where it was.
See,
I was kind of
totally numb, and I kept thinking, I'm like, wow, 2 accidents. How weird is that? Like, I just couldn't imagine it was anything but accidents. You know. The
second one is when I started thinking there's something going on. You know, and then when they talked about the Pentagon. That's when I realized, something's up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're right though. I was kind of numb.
My brain was kind of numb. Like I couldn't make sense of it when it was happening at first. You know, I'm like, wow, all these accidents. And I remember I was on the phone with my mom, and she's like, oh my gosh, we must be under attack. And I'm like, what? You know, like I was still couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Well, when you first hear about something like that, I think a lot of us our reaction first is, well, oh, it's a plane crash.
Yeah.
You know, something must have happened. Pilot maybe had a heart attack, and you know, or you know, something like that may have happened. But then when more stuff started coming out, and then of course all the different, you know, the conspiracy theories where it's like, oh, this and that, and of course I don't feel like our government's doing much to make us feel better about conspiracy theories.
Right.
But it's it's one of those things where you feel kind of numb, you kind of like but it also comes back to the whole thing about realm of control, realm of concern thing. Like and that's one of those things where it's hard for us to like not worry about things that we can't control.
Yeah.
But like something like that, there's no way, you can't just go, oh, if I do this, I'll stop the plane from hitting the thing. And I think that happens like in day to day. I feel like there's things that I worry about sometimes that I really have no control over.
Yeah.
And the things that I probably should be more concerned about are the things I do have control over, and I'm not as worried about. And that's kind of weird. But I think that might also be a bit of human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is human nature.
I think so, and I think that's something that a lot of us have to just kind of remember, that there's some things that we just can't control.
Just can't control.
With your mom passing, and I'm so glad that we got to meet her. We got to have fun at Pierogi Fest.
I know. That was a fun time. We had a good time.
That was so cool. Roll out the barrel. We had such a good time there.
I know, all the polka music.
And, you know, losing parents, it's an inevitable thing. But it's one of those things where when it happens again, it's kind of that, numb moment. Or
You do
did
go numb. You do, and especially in my case, because my mother wasn't sick. She had normal age related
Mhm.
stuff, but there was like that wasn't in our thought process yet. I mean,
Yeah.
she had aches and pains that any woman her age would have, but so we weren't expecting it. So we actually had dinner the night before, and we ate dinner at her house. She actually cooked, and after dinner I left. I came home, and my daughter was getting ready to come in for a visit. And my mom had bought some new curtains, and I said I would be over the next morning to help her hang the new curtains. And when my dad went to wake her up, that's when he found that she had passed during the night. And so it was a shock of losing a parent, but it was totally unexpected. But maybe in a way that was good, because she never suffered. She was good
Yeah.
till the very end,
Well, that's one of those things. It's like, do you if would you rather it be a long drawn out process,
Yeah.
or just kind of a quiet passing in the night?
Yeah. So, and luckily hers was, because I actually saw her the next morning. She was still there, and she had
Hmm.
fallen asleep on the couch watching TV. And so I actually saw her there, and I know it was peaceful by the way she looked.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
totally peaceful. So I do have to thank my blessings for that.
And again, when this happening during the whole COVID thing, it's kind of, yeah, it's good that it wasn't one of those situations where she's in the hospital, but they're telling you
Yes.
can't visit. And
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I know there's some folks that had that situation where
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
loved one was, like, it was almost like Fort Knox there for a while. Like, they,
And
you
I can just imagine how helpless they felt,
yeah,
and like, just, you want to be with your family member. I can imagine how hard and helpless they felt.
that's, I can't even imagine how how are things going with you and your dad now?
They're doing really good. My dad is doing really, really well. And in fact, he's getting ready to have his birthday this Sunday. He'll
Ooh,
be 88 years old.
happy birthday!
And he is doing really, really well. He is very active, and he never stops moving. In fact, he outworks me. He's still doing yard work. He just cleaned his own carpets the other day.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, Dad, you're putting me to shame.
Oh,
The only thing he does not do is cook. My dad does not cook. He never cooked in his life, never put a dish in a dishwasher. And he's starting to learn those things.
Well, he had such an amazing cook in his life for so long, though.
Yeah, they were good partners. They were really good partners.
I'll be honest with you. If I didn't have Deb,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a steady diet of ramen and pizza rolls.
Yeah. And they were really good partners, equals, just
Hmm.
good partners. She had the stuff she did, he had the stuff they did. Yeah, he did.
They complemented each other.
Yeah, they complimented each other.
Well, that's good. He's going strong, and again, it's one of those things where when something like that happens, it's good to have family together.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
sometimes,
really,
and sometimes you lose someone, but sometimes you gain someone. And I know that you have a beautiful grandbaby.
two beautiful grandbabies.
Two beautiful grandbabies.
My oldest is a son.
Mm-hmm.
And he is living up by Northern Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a granddaughter who is about to turn 2.
What? Wow.
2 years old in May. And then I have a daughter who has my grandbaby. They're actually living in Wisconsin now. I'm not even sure if you're aware of that. They're in Wisconsin, and they have a little girl, and she is just getting ready to turn 1, March 24th.
March 24th coming up. Oh, that's like 12 days away.
Yeah, I cannot believe she's almost 1.
All right, and do you spoil them all rotten?
I spoil them rotten, and it's hard not to. In fact, my daughter and my son both laugh. They're like, This is not the lady who raised us.
Isn't that always how it is too? It's like, hey, what happened to mom? Who's this? Who's
Like,
grandma?
all of a sudden you got all that McDonald's money when you never had.
Here's a Happy Meal. Where was my Happy Meal? What are you doing? Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, it's like, where were you when that happened?
Amazon packages keep getting delivered to the door.
Oh my goodness. Amazon is making grandparents the happiest. Because I remember when I was little, we had to visit grandparents for me to get anything. Yeah. But they would send a birthday card, and there always was like a $20 bill or something in there, and I would look at that. But the Amazon now, you can just, oh, this looks cute.
Yep, there you go.
Next thing you know, all these boxes arrive, and your daughter's like, what? I had to beg for a Walkman, and well, that's good. That's good. And do you get to see them a lot? Do they come to see you, or are they?
Well, my son who lives by Northern Virginia, I haven't seen him too much because his daughter just started daycare, and because his wife is going to college, so she's in daycare a little bit, and they are going through all the sicknesses. So, she's catching every cold. She's all this. And then they've been catching every cold. So it's been a little while, actually, since I've seen them. Maybe I haven't seen them since Christmas time. Because everybody's just been getting sick. And my daughter, I'm going to actually go out there in spring break.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I don't know what the weather will be like in Wisconsin, but we'll see.
Hopefully good. Spring break is like in April, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be in a couple weeks. So hopefully by then it's going to be nice up there.
Yeah.
They haven't already decided to become cheeseheads, have they?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think my son-in-law will.
That's good.
He might be partial cheesehead, maybe.
How without getting into names or details, but how are things going in the education system here?
I think it's really tough. I think there's so much that's expected from one person, because you have one adult, a teacher, in a classroom, and you have large class sizes, and every child needs individual attention and individual teaching. And it's very hard, and I think it's very stressful, and they put more and more demands, more paperwork, more stress. And so I think everybody is working so hard, and I think especially after the gap after COVID, because I think teaching was like that before, but I think it's even more so now after COVID. But you have one person who has to individualize 25
different learners,
and keep everybody engaged. So it's very stressful.
I found that just the teaching job alone, aside from all the extra stuff, you have to be like we joked earlier about us being the for the students, we're their doctor, their nurse, their mommy, their daddy, their psychiatrist, their counselor. But you're also having to be this game show host, talk show host. You're having to be all of this, and you're having to compete with TikTok, YouTube, all these things that they're used to, and you're having to take them and say, hey, I know you'd rather be playing Among Us or Fortnite or being on TikTok, but let's talk about Jamestown instead. Right. And it's like it's kind of, and you have to kind of really reel them in, and that just a regular student, just getting them to follow you with that takes tremendous, without lack of a better term, tremendous mojo and energy. Just to get that. But what really kills me too is what you're saying is that then on top of that, there seems to be so much piled on top of teachers. It's almost like there are teachers are doing the job of like 3 or 4 people.
Yes, just meetings and the paperwork and the deadlines and, having contact with the parents. It's just a lot.
I wonder, again, and it's one of those things where I feel like there's a disconnect between, I mean, I wouldn't turn down more money, but I feel like a lot of cases it's less about money and it's more about, like, I'd rather take a little bit of a pay cut and have another staff member to jump in and
actually be so helpful, or even like smaller class sizes.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. Even, there's such a difference between 20 kids and 25 kids and,
huge.
18, 25. There's such a difference that even small cuts could really help a person,
Absolutely. Since leaving the public school, I've been teaching online, and my class sizes range from, like, I have a couple classes, I just have one student. But a lot of my classes are like 5 or 6, in some cases 7 students.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like teaching in small group, but that's your class.
Yeah.
And you have so much more you can do so much more personalized.
Yeah.
And when you're having, and it's tough because this is a job you can't really fake. And a lot of other jobs, people talk about quiet quitting, where when they start feeling like they're not appreciated, they just start sitting back, doing the bare minimum. But in the teacher's case, it's so incredibly hard to do that. But then also there's such a demand where you start to feel burnout. Like, I remember, like, one of the main reasons I left was I couldn't be me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't be the teacher I wanted to be. And on top of that, do all these extra expectations that in a lot of times almost, not to get into, serious stuff, but like, I didn't feel appreciated. I had a master's degree in education, and I have people that have less experience than me telling me that what I've been doing that's been working for 10 years is somehow suddenly wrong because they read a book.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, in talking with so many colleagues feel the same way.
Yeah.
And yet it's like, and that has such a devastation to your self-worth. And and that, I made a commitment to myself when I first started teaching. The moment that I stopped wanting to see the kids, I needed to get out. When I started resenting the kids, that's when I had to get out. And it wasn't the kids' fault. It was just, I was so drained of everything.
Yeah.
That
not enough to give. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I see so many great teachers being put into that position.
And it's heartbreaking. Most of the teachers I've ever met are helpers. And they want to go in. They want to do good. They want to have fun. They want to have relations. Like, they're there because they want to. And they've always had to give more, and they did it. But then it just became more and more and more. And, it's hard. It is just hard. And I think you're right. Like, if it takes a while when you're teaching, for anybody, I think, to get your groove, to see what works, to see what doesn't work, So instead of, it should be more of a group discussion. Like, I've always found this has really worked well for me, and because reading a book or just coming out of college, it sounds good, but really you got to get on the field. You got to start playing, and what works, what doesn't work.
Big time. I go back to my I know I've told you this story a couple times before, but where my first lesson I ever taught was, it was my practicum. It wasn't even my student teaching. It was my practicum. So I'm in this 5th grade classroom, and I've been observing the classroom up to this point. And so the teacher felt comfortable with me enough. So he said, all right, I'm going to let you teach this lesson on the, and I think it was something about the life cycle of a plant or something like that. It was something like that. So I spend the weekend, and everything that I've been taught about Kagan structures, jigsaw, all these different, all these, educational philosophies, and I'm making this thing, and I'm writing it, and I put it, and I've got this golden, lesson plan that's it was from up on high. It had all the bullet points, and all the learning targets, and everything in it. I go in, and I'm all confident ready to teach this lesson to these fifth graders. And it was a disaster. Yeah. It was a disaster. Within 2 minutes, I'm trying to explain the lesson. I'm trying to it was one of those things where I gave each student a different job and I explained what the job was. And then, of course, once you realize it's I didn't have the teacher experience to pivot. Yeah. So I'm still trying to push this lesson the way it is and not pivoting for anything. And the kids, and then the kids, just like sharks, they could sense blood in the water. So they knew, Mr. Burden doesn't know what he's doing, so we're going to act up loose. And immediately, of course, the teacher is she's in the back taking notes, and she's just got this little smirk on her face. Yeah. And of course, unfortunately, this was the last 30 minutes before dismissal. Yeah. So finally, I just was all right, here's the worksheet. Here, we'll just do this. And then they leave. Yeah. And then she pulls me aside and she sits down, and I'm just I'm so defeated. What? I'm just maybe this isn't my gig. And I sit down with her, and the first thing she says, she looks at me, she goes, all right, before I give you any feedback, I got to ask you one question. She said, how many lessons have you taught? And I said, including this one, 1. And she laughed and she goes, that's what I thought. All right. It's gonna come, and then she gave me the real deal. She said it's gonna take you years to develop your gig, and she gave me good criticism, and she said you already know this stuff, but this is don't try. You got to learn to pivot, you got to learn to improvise, and blah blah blah. But that'll come. But that was the big thing too. She said it'll come. You're going to stumble. You're going to, and I think that's good in life too. You're gonna stumble. And sometimes you don't really learn unless you do that. Yeah,
yeah. No, I think about if I go to the hospital, do I want a nurse who has just come out of college, or do I want a nurse who's been on the floor for 5 years?
Yeah, I'm gonna have open heart surgery. Do I want the 21-year-old med student? Let me make or do I want the old surgeon that's been cutting people for years? Yeah. Maybe not if his hand is like this, but at least he could tell people. I want him at least in the room, or she in the room. Definitely.
Teaching, I think, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the only fields where they're okay, forget everything you learned. Now we're going to start something new every year.
Oh, that drives me nuts though, and that's one of those things. It's clearly one of those things where they got a discount. We went from Google Chrome to Schoology to Canvas in the span of 5 years. And it's just, come on, just stick with something. Yeah. It's not one of those things. It's one thing to adapt to modern technology, but it's a completely, we don't use ditto machines anymore. Yeah. But it's a different thing to change to everything just for the sake of change. Yeah. And on top of that, we not having people that are making the decisions necessary, making the right decisions from the standpoint of, I remember we had all this stuff for math that was dependent on Adobe Flash. Yeah. And then they kept having this warning, hey, in 6 months, Adobe Flash is going away. 5 months, it's going away. 4 months, you got to. And then as soon as it finally, January hit, it was gone. They had to go, oh no, we got to change everything over to some other thing. One of the great stories, Karen Shiley, a mutual friend of ours, love Karen.
Miss her so much.
She imparted so many words of wisdom. In fact, she's one of the reasons I stuck with teaching. Because she's one of the reading. She was our reading specialist for those that don't know, and she had this realistic view. She'd been in this education for so long, and she was one of those folks that here's what downtown is saying. Here's what the experts are saying, what my experience is, but also I understand realistically this, if you get this much done, you're doing great. Yeah. And she told me a great story that made me feel so much better early on. She told me about a friend of hers that had been teaching for decades, and she said that her friend said she wishes she could go back and call all of her students from her first 3 years and apologize.
Yeah.
Because that was
Yeah.
truly like it takes you almost 3 years. And I thought
It really
about
does.
it, and
Yeah.
I realized it was my third year teaching that I finally started to feel my groove.
Yeah.
Like, I think, of course, they're still changing everything in the curriculum, and I'm having to go, new
Yeah.
lessons. But that's when I really started feeling it. And
Yeah.
I think kind of drawing this a connection that's not just for teaching, but for everybody, I think we as humans need to really cut ourselves a lot of slack.
Yes.
I think sometimes we are all a little bit too hard on ourselves, except for those narcissistic people out there.
Yeah.
And you know who you are, you narcissistic people. But I feel like we need to cut ourselves a lot of slack. I think we need to be patient with ourselves, with
And I think
things.
that's the hardest thing. And we'll give other people patience.
Yeah.
You know, we're kind, but for ourselves, why am I so slow? Why am I not getting it? You know, it's because you just started. Give yourself a minute.
Yeah. And you may have to give yourself more than a minute. You may have to give yourself a couple months.
Yeah.
I think like anything, like trying to lose weight or trying to start a new project, you got to give yourself a lot of slack and credit.
Yeah.
And this is one of those sayings that sound cheesy when I say it, but it actually means a lot. Is I used to tell the kids to celebrate your victories.
Yes.
I did the old thing where I would write, like, this was like my first week of teaching. I would go on the board and I'd write 10 math problems, and 9 of them are correct, but one of them would be like 4 plus 5 equals 10.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say anything, and then the kids would, Mr. Burden, oh, you got that one wrong, oh, and I would say, you're right, but guess what? I still passed. I still did good. I got 9 out of 10 correct.
Yeah.
But why is it that we only focused on the one that we got wrong and not being proud of the 9 that I got correct?
And that perfectly ties into when we first started talking.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we focus on the things we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like we always focus on what we didn't get right. And just like don't even worry about the things. Like you said, I got the other 9 right. Why am I just focused on this one? Or, why does she get 5 right and I only had 4 right? Or, why is this easier for her and not easier? But we don't see what's easier for us or what we do get right.
And I think, and you just touched on something too. It's like, it's tough to compare when you try to compare yourself to others. And I think this is something that our society has really got to get a grip on, because you hear about, like, this person, this person is this and I'm not, and that kind of thing. And like you hear like body shaming or, culture shaming. I think we need to stop comparing ourselves to others.
And I feel sorry for the students nowadays because of all this internet accessibility, because like people are posting things where they look perfect. You're only going to post what is good, and what is spectacular. So everybody's like, well, how come she feels like that all the time? Or why does she get to do all these great things? Or like they just have that constant.
Well, there's Instagram filters,
Yeah.
It's like, and they're bombarded by, and it's like the 0.1% of the world, but they're seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes the same too with on social media with trolls, and kind of like we only focus on the negative. You could post something like on Facebook or Twitter or where have you, and you might have 90 people complimenting you, but that one person that's nasty, that's what sticks in your head. Like, I can't believe that guy. I can't believe he was so nasty. Yeah. And I think, even adults, we struggle with it. But when you're a kid that's still figuring yourself out, you're still in that zone of, hey, who am I? What's going on?
Yeah.
Kids could be so cruel at that age, and it could and it's exacerbated by that. Instead of just one troll, you get like 10.
All day long. Like at least when we were kids and we were in school, we may get in a fight with somebody or our feelings hurt, and we went home and we disconnected and we had time to recuperate. Now it's like they're with each other in school, they're with each other online. It's like 24/7. So that's hard too. And then you think of all the people who are spent, like, I'm thinking of the Kardashians. They're so gorgeous, but they're spending millions of dollars on plastic surgery. And
Yeah.
it's, like, are we supposed to compare ourselves to that? No wonder they look perfect. And so it is hard.
It's hard, and I think that the trick is, and again, this is easier said than done because it's so hard. I think it's human nature to compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's what I used to tell the kids in class is, don't compare yourself. Only compare yourself to one person, who you were yesterday.
Yeah.
Because if you're comparing it, like you said, you might be sitting next to a kid that got all the questions correct and you only got 8 of them correct. Well, now you feel bad about only getting 8 correct compared to Chadley, who's sitting next to you.
Yeah.
Instead of actually celebrating, hey, I got 8 out of 10 correct. I only have to focus on those 2.
Yeah.
And next time I'm going to get 100%. And it's not just with math, but like with a lot of things, is I think we tend to not give ourselves credit.
Yeah, right away we're like, I'm not as smart. I'm not as good. I don't get it. This, I'll never be able to do it.
Those and words have so much power.
Yeah.
Not just with other people, but definitely with ourselves.
Definitely.
Like I think sometimes when we like tell ourselves, I suffer imposter syndrome a lot of times with the podcasting or even with teaching. With teaching, when I was always my worst critic, and I always felt like when I would teach a lesson, I always picked up on the things I did wrong.
Yeah.
None of the kids, and even when people would observe, they rarely picked up on those things.
Right,
One or two maybe, but like the kids don't know.
Yeah.
And nobody knows except me, but I sit there and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I said this, or I can't believe I did that. And the same thing goes with podcasting. It's like I almost didn't start doing this because I was like, well, who am I? What am I going to do? Why am I going to start this? And I'm like, well, stop talking like that.
Yeah.
And just do it. And
I think that's one thing a lot of people don't realize. There's most teachers are like that. They're very big-hearted, and they want to do so good. And because it's just not a field, like you said, you get in to dial it in. Like they're coming in with big hearts because they're helpers. It's certainly not the money or the fame. They're doing it because they want to from their hearts.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I remember those that do start teaching because they think it's easy, they don't last. They don't even last the first year.
Yeah.
When I was going to get my master's at ODU, I remember I was in a class of like 50 students, and it was interesting because there was about, I'd say roughly 20 of us that you could tell we're in it for teaching. Like we're in it to become good teachers, to help the kids, to really help them grow. We had our own like we want the kids to become critical thinkers, that kind of stuff. Then there was the kids, there were the students that were choosing teaching because they didn't know what else they were going to do. I actually remember one student, bless her heart, she flat out said she's only going to become a teacher because until she finds a husband.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no, don't just stop.
Yeah.
Go find another job, because teaching, and it's like you said, teaching, that teachers are a breed that we want to help. We want to be, and almost to the point of it being against our own best interest. Where I have to tell myself, stop. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I was talking with my mom, who's still she retired teaching 10 years ago, but now she's back in the classroom as a special education coordinator. And,
oh my gosh, good for her.
But here's the thing: she's feeling guilty because she was there's this one kid that doesn't have minutes, and she was thinking about after school working with this kid for extra half hour. And it's one of those things where you have to realize that if you burn yourself out, you're not doing a service to those
Yeah.
students, to the people that you work that count on you.
Yeah.
Because
It sounds
that's
like it's only a half an hour after school with one student, but then it pushes back. You're planning for every other student,
yes,
all the paperwork, all the meeting. You know what I mean? It's just,
exactly.
yeah.
It
If it was just half an hour, but it's not. That half an
mm-mm.
hour now pushes back 4 hours of work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, what can you get done in a half an hour?
Yeah.
You know, that is it even that worth it? I remember another mutual friend of ours, Christy Temple, where she was really trying hard to, they get everything dumped on them. And I remember she would push in for one of my students, and it's like she on the thing, it was just talking about, you have 10 minutes, and she's like, 10 minutes is not enough time to do anything.
No.
And that feeling of, it's like, well, by the time I sit them down and start talking with them, the 10 minutes is up.
Yeah, just get them over to the table.
Yeah, and we could spend a good hour dissecting what's wrong with the education system, but like,
let me ask you, how did you get over, or what helps you with your imposter syndrome?
Telling myself, well, for one, it's telling myself to stop thinking like that.
Yeah.
Just do it. And this is kind of a funny thing. It's the same thing I used to tell myself whenever I'd get up in the morning to go to get ready for school. Is I always wanted to hit that snooze alarm. But the trick is, and this is what it's for exercise, it's for everything. You got to just do it before your body knows you're doing it.
Yeah.
Do it before your brain knows you're doing it. It's just you gotta almost force yourself to, before you start overthinking it.
Yeah.
Like, what I would do in the morning is, my alarm would go off, and I'd know I just want to sleep in. I just want to lay there. But I'd get up and I'd run, and I'm already in the bathroom, already in the shower, before my body realizes I'm in the shower, and I go, wait, what are you doing? It's the same thing with the imposter syndrome, is you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's and it sounds, again, cliche, cheesy, but there's a reason why there are these sayings.
Yeah.
You can't hit the ball if you don't swing.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing. You hit 0% of all the balls you don't swing at. But if you take the swing, you're eventually going to hit something. And you have to just do it. And when it's worse when you just sit there and you get in your own head.
See, that's what happened to me, because I would think negative about myself or what I could do. And it was just, I don't know, it was just natural. And I just kind of had to become aware of my own thoughts.
Yes.
And so when I was thinking, like, you can't, you won't, whatever.
Yeah.
I would change it. Well, wait a minute. Yes, I can. Like, I had to mentally change it myself. Like, I'm realizing I'm thinking something negative. I'm just going to change what I'm thinking. And
exactly.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's like our own voice can be our own worst critic. And for some reason it plays on where it judges you,
Yes.
But, I'm always constantly trying to change it where it's not. I'm trying to change the thoughts that I have in my own head.
I think you're right. Like, there's a quote that Bruce Lee came up with, and it's about words having power.
Yeah.
And I gotta find it, but it's one of those things that we're and I'll tell you what, I'll put it in this podcast right here. but it has to do with that philosophy that words have power, but it goes both ways. If you're constantly just telling it, like, you have this voice in your head saying, you're not going to do it, no one's going to listen to you, you're not going to be able to do it. But if you instead go, no, I'm going to do it, you got to build value in yourself.
Yes.
Or others aren't going to see it.
And you can't build it from the outside. We always try to build it from the outside.
You're done. If you're seeking outside influence to determine your day, determine your value, you're done. You're a slave to that. You're a shackle. It's something I used to tell kids, is that if you're letting someone else's view of you influence your own self-worth, then you're a slave to that, but you're giving them power instead of taking power for yourself.
And it's like kids, but it's adults too.
No, yeah.
And I, like when I'm in school, I try to tell the kids that. Somebody will come up to me and like, he called me stupid. I'm like, was it true? Are you stupid? And they're like, no. I'm like, why are you listening? People are going to say things that are not true all the time. Why are you listening? So, and then we get in a discussion and we start talking, but it's for adults too, and
Yes.
sometimes what we hear or what we see, we have to just change that voice and, and not, it doesn't come from the outside. And that's hard for children, but it's hard for adults too.
Really hard for adults. Now, I'm going to impress you, Mary.
Okay.
I'm going to get very, very zen.
Okay.
Kind of here comes the wisdom from Yoda here.
Okay.
All right, it's the Buddha. The Buddha has a saying. Buddha says that if someone offers me a gift and I refuse or I decline the gift, whose gift is it?
Yeah. And
it's the same with insults.
Yeah.
If someone insults me and I decline the insult, they're the ones holding it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same. Now, again, don't I sound all woo?
You do. Yeah.
Very good. Now go forth and take the grasshopper's pebble from his hand. Whatever.
Like a fortune cookie.
Yeah. I should start writing fortune cookies now. Yeah. Look at me. The fortune cookie wisdom of Aaron Burden. But no, but I think that relates to what we're talking about is that you, if it's like you said, oh, he called me stupid. Well, are you stupid?
Yeah.
Well, no. Do you believe you're stupid? No. Well, then that's on them.
Yeah.
That's
so hard. And, it is in so many different areas of life. Like we were just talking about, somebody takes a test. They do better than you. Well, I must be stupid. No, you're not. It's the same thing. We go through different phases as we grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like you said, I've learned more about adults, about us.
Yeah.
Through watching kids because they're I see where a lot of the stuff begins. Yeah. There's still that primordial dough in the oven.
Yeah.
But like I see like, oh, that this third grader's doing this. That's just like, a hang up I see adults have.
Yeah.
But it's like that's manifested. It's that same thing. It's like, wow, that works for me too. And it's because we're all human.
Yeah.
And it's that mentality of, we're and I think it is a kind of a primitive instinct to compare. Right? You think about, hunter gatherer times. You're always comparing yourself to the other tribe. Like, are we healthier? Are we stronger than the other tribe? Are we protected? But when you really think about it, you're the only person that has the power to make decisions in your life is you.
That's right. That's right.
So take that power.
Take that power.
That's my Tony Robbins. That's our Tony Robbins and I'm at Tina Robbins.
There you go. The next egg roll message.
The next egg. Hey, okay. Hey, we won't get. You can't order orange chicken, but we'll get you orange bird and bomber
there you
instead.
Go. I got to try the new flavors of bomber.
Yeah, the wild strawberry I really like.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I like playing with the different combos of the different combinations of emergency.
Yeah.
Because some don't always work. Like the raspberry emergency is tough to mix with certain flavors.
Yeah. But
it works great. The raspberry works great with the wild strawberry and the wild berry. Doesn't so much work with the orange stuff. What's that?
But I'm not kidding. I have to be on the lookout, but I'm not kidding because people are creeping up to you now with the energy and the emergency mixture. So you really need to get that patent on the bomber.
Got to get it. I'm working on that today then. We're going to get that done.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, it has kept me running many days.
Oh, it'll get you through it.
It's again, a now. People are using it. It's spreading.
I just remember, I think it's funny that there's other schools now, like there's other people, and they use the term bird and bomber. They don't even know who I am. And they go, oh, it's the bird and bomber. Who's Burden? Well, some teacher from, like I'm some ancient
Virginia Beach mascot.
Yeah, like there was this legendary teacher long ago. He had the bird and bomber.
And he talked like the Buddha.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And now I'm only responsible for the mixtures that I recommend. You know, if you're a teacher that adds anything extra, and you know what I mean, don't. Because I know it can be stressful. That some teachers might be like, oh, how about a little Jack in this one? All right, kids.
A hot toddy bomber.
There you go. Hot toddy bomber. That's for after school. Yeah, after school you get the hot. You get the hot toddy bomber. Throw a little bit of that. Well, Mary, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I'd love to have you back on and talk again more. Is there any advice, anything you'd like to give, any final thoughts or words of wisdom for folks and about mental health, and anything you'd like to impart, any fortune cookie you'd like to open and unwrap?
You know, the thing for me in my journey through mental health is we're all the same. We're not alone. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling it, somebody else has felt it, or they're feeling it, or they will feel it. And at first I was kind of like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not stronger? Why am I not perfect? This or that. But we're all human. And it's just, we all go through the same struggles. You know, it's not just me. It's not just you. We all do it. So to me, that was the biggest thing, knowing I'm not alone.
You're not alone, and you're human. We're all human.
We're all
absolutely.
Human. We're all going to be days we're happy, or the days we're stressed, and it's okay.
And we need to cut ourselves a lot of slack too.
Yeah,
we're doing the best. If you're doing the best you can, you're doing great.
You're doing great.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. This episode has also not only been brought to us by the Burden Bomber, but also is brought to us by, and I'll put a link in the description below. Check out Rutter-Jackson Financial Services. She has free consultations. She'd love to talk to you.
And amazing. She's amazing.
She's fantastic. She has been very helpful with me. She's another one of those people that I would not have stayed in teaching if it wasn't for her. Yeah. Her attention to detail is phenomenal. So highly recommend.
Part of the tribe.
Part of the tribe. All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you next Monday. This has been Mental Health Mondays for Mary Koushel. This has been Fortune Cookie AA Ron Burden. And we'll open another Fortune Cookie next Monday. Thank you for stopping by.